Greetings, everyone. It is GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. On our last episode, we played through some more Elwyn Forest into the logging camp side of things in the east of the zone with our paladin, and we had another one bite the dust, so we were really playing hardcore. Also in chat, when I was doing a little fishing, I was basically told, if you have any interest at all in doing instances, don't do this server, they don't do it. So I might have to realm hop all those characters over to another realm if I have any intention of actually doing the instances, which I do. I want to do all the content together. So yeah, it's okay, not a big deal. All right, we've also been reading the Dungeons and Dragons version of World of Warcraft, looking through the Northrend zones through the eyes of Bran Bronzebeard in a book called The Lands of Mystery. So stay a while and listen as we continue that with one of my favorite zones in all of World of Warcraft, Grizzly Hills, mostly because of the music. It's just got some good music. They've tried to take the Azure Span and ape a lot of this music, but it's just this classic Grizzly Hills is the best. Grizzle Maw is the only settlement they have, the capital here, which is the furbolg big zone that still does exist. They say they have a lot of Ironforged dwarves and Scourge. There's a lot of other things going on here in the Grizzly Hills that they've obviously revamped this zone. They see Drak'Thuron Keep they have as a major settlement. Well, that's trolls. There is also lots of alliance settlements and stuff like that. It's not independent. I would say it's more of an alliance land, but everything's kind of independent. I just would give it alliance flavor. I have to admit, I like the Grizzly Hills. They remind me of other forests during winter time, except that winter here is year-round. The trees are tall and thick, the pine needles and crisp, clean air produce a pleasant scent. That needs some editing. The snow leaves the ground clean and fresh, and the hills themselves are high enough for decent elevation, but low enough for and gradual enough to be easily climbed. It's one of the nicest regions in Northrend, and I'm not just saying that because dwarves live here. Of course, the dwarves at Thor Modan aren't the only residents. Furbolgs dominate the region, and they make fine neighbors when they're not attacking. The Scourge has a presence here as well, but not strong enough to do much more than block the northwest corner. Wild animals roam the hills, providing plenty of meat and fur and entertainment. It's not an easy land by any stretch, but it's handsome and fierce and full of life. Furbolgish. People and culture. This region is the furbolg homeland, and they outnumber every other race here combined. If you've never seen these massive bearmen, that's exactly what they are. Enormous creatures with a bear's build and fur and basic features, but a man's hands and to a limited extent mind. That's a dangerous combination, and they're powerful in a fight. Fortunately, they're not aggressive beyond their own territory. The dwarves at Thor Modan have run-ins with furbolgs on a regular basis since furbolgs feel our kinsmen are trespassers and grave robbers. Furbolgs are surprisingly friendly to travelers, though, and greeted me warmly once I assured them I had no claim to anything in the hills. I've heard they're less approving of large groups and particularly wary of strange races, but I can't blame them for their caution. The furbolgs have a city here, Grizzlemall, but it holds less than half their number. The rest are gathered in clans and scattered throughout the region. Each clan has its own totem, and when you see one, you know you've entered Snow Spring territory or Winterpaw land or Snow Flurry hunting grounds or any of the others. It's best to declare yourself openly once you see the totem, since a furbolg may be watching and won't appreciate your trying to sneak past. The dwarves in Thor Modan were thrilled to see me and eager for news of home. I guess they don't get that many travelers up here, particularly other dwarves. They're not here for socializing, though, and remain focused on their excavations. They have not yet discovered anything of note, but they're still hopeful. The Scourge forces at Drak'Thuron Keep are typical. Nasty, violent, and focused. They hold the passes between Zuul-Drak, the Dragonblight, and the rest of the Grizzly Hills, so that more Scourge forces can reach the east or return to Icecrown Glacier. Geography. The Grizzly Hills are as hilly as the name suggests. Along the northern edges, the land gains height and depth, approaching the level of small mountain ranges, while it flattens out a little to the south. Thick forest covers the land from end to end, broken only by small clearings or the space alongside one of the many streams and small rivers. Snow is everywhere, but the region has little ice. The wind whistles overhead, but the trees block it from entering down below, and the hills seem almost warm after the Dragonblight and the Borean tundra. It's still dangerous, with treacherous slopes and hidden caves and partially frozen rivers, but better than most of the other regions. All manner of wild animals must agree with me because the hills are full of life. Wolves, bears, foxes, rabbits, and some small deer are the most common, though I saw others as well. Mice and other rodents hide from the snowy owls and other raptors in the trees, but mercifully, snakes and spiders aren't present here, as they wouldn't be happy with the temperature. Wendigo and Sasquatch prowl the hills, so it's best not to go out alone. The Drukhari live just north in Zuldrak, and sometimes their hunters drift down to the hills as well in search of prey. Sites and settlements. The Grizzly Hills have 3 major settlements, each controlled by a different race. It's strange that all 3 can coexist here, and even stranger that they're all along the north edge. The southern hills have other furbolg tribes and the random trapper or traveler, but nothing larger than a small village. Drak'Thuron Keep is a military outpost. This ancient stone citadel once belonged to the Drukhari trolls. The Scourge drove them out and took possession, and now the Scourge has a garrison here holding the mountain passes. It's a well-placed, solidly built structure, and the small group of undead within can easily hold the keep against forces 10 times its size, particularly since they don't need food or water during a siege. Yeah, and that's really kind of like a hybrid zone of a mixture of trolls and Scourge. It's like an undead troll area. Thormodon is a town that's even larger. This little town looks like it was thrown together, which it was. Mismatched tents stand between rough wooden shacks and the occasional stone hut, and streets veer whenever someone is settled in their path. I know the expedition leaders slowly correct the settlement's haphazard construction, replacing the temporary buildings with permanent ones and straightening the paths, but they've still got a ways to go. This isn't surprising since they're more interested in digging for old dwarven relics than in setting up shop. Furbolgs attack frequently, so the camp has walls up now and a garden place. That at least gives it some shape. I don't know that it exists like that. I do think maybe there's a Thormodon to the north, but it's not like that. It's like an excavated... There's a lot of excavations going on, but I don't think there's actually like a true dwarven community. There's a weird earthen or iron dwarf or whatever type of area. Okay, then they give the stats on Grizzlemaw as it's a big enough community to get its own... It's a 9th level community. Furbolgs are nomadic, following caribou and other prey through established territories, so they don't have many fixed structures, just central lodges in the centers of their hunting grounds. Grizzlemaw is the exception. A few stories claim the city was built on the site of the Frostpaw tribe's lodge and made large enough to accommodate several tribes at once. The Frostpaw then invited other friendly tribes to shelter the winter with them. The resulting ties changed the Furbolgs from scattered hunters to a stronger, more unified race. And the Grizzly Hills from ancestral hunting grounds to a loosely defined nation. It's a big, rough-hewn place with a tall wooden palisade surrounding massive stone and wooden houses. Guard towers mark the 4 corners, and smaller ones flank the double doors in front. Furbolgs are simple and uncomplicated, and so is their home. Furs cover the floors and furniture, which is large and comfortable, and woven tapestries lend some color to the walls. Weapons and other trophies are mounted above doors and windows, which have thin sheets of skin to keep out the cold. Large fire pits stand at the center of every house, and some large rooms have their own smaller pits down the middle. Furbolgs remind me of Tuskar, or perhaps it's the other way around. They're focused on their work and the survival of their families, and are not violent unless you cross them. They're hunters and trappers rather than fishermen, though I have seen Furbolgs spearing fish in the river. Shamans run the tribes along with the family elders. Warriors are next, and then hunters and gatherers. The women stay home and tend to the children and to food preparation, though an angry Furbolg woman is as dangerous as most armed men. Now this changes to make Grizzlemaw seated within like a giant tree, which is the kind of decayed remnants of a failed attempt at making another world tree. History. The Furbolgs claim they were the first people in these hills, so do the Drukhari, though they're concentrated to the north in Zuldrak, but actually they're both wrong. We were here first. At least that's what Hardigan Ironjaw of the Thormodon expedition tells me. He says the Titans placed dwarves here after they'd created us. It was an experiment to see if we could survive on our own. We not only survived, but flourished, spreading southward and into what would later become Kalimdor and the other continents. Hardigan thinks he can find evidence of our ancestors here in the hills and uncover truths about our race's early culture. Maybe he's right. The Explorers Guild thought it likely enough to send him here at any rate. I believe we did start here in the north since the Titans were here. I'm just not sure we ever settled up here. Regardless, all this was well before any surviving history. Furbolgs don't keep careful records beyond births, deaths, marriages, blood feuds, and hunting tallies. The Drukhari wouldn't have cared about dwarves even if they'd seen us, unless it was how we tasted on a spit, so no one really knows what went on here back then yet. Other stories say that the Drukhari built Drak'Thuron Keep before the Furbolgs built Grizzlemaw. Supposedly the Frostpaws gathered the tribes together in part to fend off the new Drukhari threat. Both races were here and hated each other. The Furbolgs had the numbers, but with their new keep, the Drukhari were more organized, and the trolls were always more unified than the Furbolgs. The existence of Grizzlemaw affected the balance, and the Furbolgs' victory over the Drukhari in a series of skirmishes may have led to the keep's eventual loss of Drak'Thuron to the Scourge. And adventures. You definitely want to stay alert in the Grizzly Hills. Furbolgs don't attack unless you trespass on their lands, or threaten their kin, or steal their prey, or look like you could pose a threat later. Drakari attack on sight, and so do Scourge forces. The dwarves just want to know what you've seen. And the quest is called Unearthed. A dwarven prospector finally uncovers what the Thormodon expedition seeks, an ancient relic clearly made by dwarves. The relic is an enormous and heavy statue of iron. The problem is he found the statue in a cave between Grizzlemall and Drakthron Keep. The heroes have to find and retrieve the relic without getting caught by the Scourge or the Furbolgs, all the while avoiding the wild beasts in the area. Alright, so interesting the parts that do exist, but obviously there's a lot that changes and evolves with Grizzly Hills. Either way, we have another episode in the pipe, 5x5. I thank you as always so much for watching and listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Lore of Warcraft.